Welcome to the Improve Our podcast. I'm your host, Daniela Tancău, an HR consultant helping entrepreneurs and team leaders build motivated, high-performing teams. Here we talk about leadership, employee motivation, and other topics that enhance your ability to lead. Whether you are an entrepreneur with a team, a business owner planning to build one, or a leader in a company. You'll gain practical advice and insights from me and my guests, experts in the field and entrepreneurs who share their leadership experiences. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe to stay updated on every episode. Let's dive into today's topic. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Improve Our podcast. Today's episode is the first one of the year, and we are starting with an important topic and a great guest. We are talking about organizational culture, and my guest today, Greg Hawkes, who is a culture specialist, will share what organizational culture is, how we can better understand it, no matter what level we are in a company or if we are outsiders, and how it can be changed. Greg is the owner of Hawkes Agency, which offers consultancy in areas such as transforming and designing cultures, team communication, and leadership growth. He's also a keynote speaker, and he and his team speak at events focusing on topics related to culture and leadership. And besides this, Greg is also an author. His first book, Act Like an Owner, is being launched this month in January. He talks a bit about this book at the end of this episode, so listen to the end. And you can also find a link in the episode description with more information and details on where you can purchase this book. Let's dive in and listen to all the good stuff Greg shared with us. Welcome to the podcast, Greg. Thank you for being here. And we'll talk about organizational culture today. We already spoke a little bit about this when we were preparing this episode, and we decided to start our conversation by explaining what company culture is, because there are different perspectives on it. So from your perspective, what is organizational culture? How do you define it?
That's what's fun about it. First of all, thank you so much for letting me be a part of your podcast show, and we can get these listeners stirred up and thinking about good things for their workplace. Culture, what I have found, has so many different definitions because depending on the place that it is, they think about it in a way. For me, I've done these conversations in different workplaces asking employees the same question. What do you think culture is? And it has varied as much as a simple definition, which is like just the way this place feels. Another definition is, what we tolerate around here is defining our culture. And, another definition, how we do what we do or how we treat people kind of has this base idea. I like to think of it a little more broadly in context of even society. So, in what defines culture in companies is similar to what defines culture in countries or states or cities or communities, right? It's the language they use. It's the governing principles that they value so much. It's the art, whether it's music or visual, the sound and experience of the place that kind of shapes it. It's the attitudes that people bring towards life themselves. And that's why when we go into a remote workplace compared to an in-person, culture still can transfer because just like in any society, if me as an American travel to you, people would be like, oh, he's American. Because I carry my culture with me. And so it's not like I become your culture when I get there. And so some of the challenges organizations are facing with keeping culture together in a remote space only indicates the culture they have isn't really well established. Because when you have a well established culture, right, what we value, how we treat people, how we lead, and how we communicate, and how we deal with problems, and the language we use, and the attitudes we bring to it, those translate whether you're in person, on a screen, or somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm. I like very much your comparison, and I really think that yes, a company culture is similar to a country culture, and in fact, I think that country culture impacts an organizational culture. Culture,
Completely, completely.
yes, and yes, you described very well the elements of a culture.
Hmm.
So, so, uh, taking into account that every company has its own culture, how an outsider can recognize or figure out, understand a company's culture. And let's say that we are talking about a candidate who is going to an interview and is
Hmm.
in the selection phase. He's or he or she is interacting with members of that company, and maybe he sees some places of that company. How can a candidate figure out what that company culture is?
You know what's so interesting about this question is I usually work with organizations and have it reversed because in the hiring process, you're like, how do we know if this candidate aligns with our culture
Mm-hmm.
and they will come in? And so I love the flip on it because it's probably very similar in how a company does the same thing because it's trying to discover, do you hold similar values to what we possess as an organization or the other people who are succeeding here? Because that's really what you're looking for is like, they used to use this term culture fit, and people are like, oh, it's not bad if they fit. And what we're really saying is, do your values align with the company value? And so, first, a candidate has to themselves be self-aware enough to say, here are the things that are really important to me in a company. Um, and so they themselves have to come in knowing that. And once they have that about themselves, then they can start asking questions, not directly. It's like, do you value truth? Do you guys value having hard conversations? Do you value work-life balance? Do you value me outside of this place? So you don't ask ever in any of those kind of scenarios. You don't just ask the direct question. So if I was a candidate and let's say, I want to bring my ownership mindset to it, but I value the whole of my life. I would say, what are some examples of what you do as a company that extends beyond the workday? Maybe it's a community outreach. Maybe it's something even being mindful of what people do. Do they have anything about childcare services? Do they have a brand identity in the community that is service minded? Because you can't necessarily say, hey, does everybody leave here when the day's over? But if you can recognize, hey, we as a company have these initiatives that indicate we value people beyond just getting the work done, but we've got these other things in play that, hey, we do, every quarter our company does an outreach in our community, or, we have a team of people, we have these resource groups that gather together and talk about ways to be mindful of people in need. And so we're doing things like that. So I would ask questions that aren't so direct, but that indicate a company value. So you could also be like, I've been to companies that they just dance around subjects. They have really thin trust. They haven't really cultivated a culture where they're used to like dealing with things directly. And so
Mm-hmm.
as a candidate, I could say, hey, give me an example of conflict. What is it? What was the last conflict a leader or a manager like this department I'm going in? If you're the leader of that department, tell me a conflict you recently had with one of the team members and just kind of share with me how
Mm-hmm.
you handle something like that. Because even in that, then it's like, okay, let's take a real life scenario that's outside of this conversation, and you describe something that's already happened. And then, I mean, then if I was really serious about it, I would say, listen to the leader, manager, director, and say, this is kind of what happened. And then I would say something like, that's interesting, it's great, whatever. And then I wonder if I could have a brief conversation with the person that you had that conflict with in this interview process. Because, they like to do panels and like to do different interviews. I wonder if the interview process, I could chat with that person and see if they see it the same way and see what their experience was in that so that I understand there really is this mutual regard even when there's difficulty. And so for a candidate, it's asking questions that aren't direct, but that speak to the value they hold around certain things that then would
Mm-hmm.
indicate if the company already lives in that space.
And it will be interesting to see if those in the interview let the candidate speak with
Oh
that,
no, right. Right, because what
because
does that say? What does that
yes,
say?
yes. And there are also maybe things like how the space is organized, how team members or yes, the company members interact with each other. Because before entering in an interview, maybe you saw how people speak in that company, in that space, how they interact, and you form an idea about what is going on there, how they
Right. And
feel, and what is the general atmosphere.
Right. You can just get a little bit of that walking around.
Yes,
And also the physical design, like you're saying,
yes.
some offices have redesigned for collaboration, right? It's very
Mm-hmm.
intentional with hoteling at desks or, only having offices that are used for conferences and small groups together. And so you can see a physical space that's been intentionally designed for collaboration and people getting work done in a very set way and then kind of coming back. And so, when people have made that investment physically in the office space, that's a really good
Mm-hmm.
indicator that they value a bit of cross collaboration, which, in my book, talking about how you diffuse silos, people that are holed up in just one area and just focus and, they don't talk to anybody outside of their
Mm-hmm.
team. Having a physical space that forces that is a really good indicator.
And also how they are welcomed in the interview, maybe the space interview, because this can say a lot about the company also, and how they behave in the interview. If they let you to ask question, if they are open to your curiosities.
Yes. Well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if they're not in, and honestly though, Danielle, it's like some people, it depends on the job. What an
Yes.
engineer is looking for in a work environment is very different than an HR specialist, and which is
Yes.
very different than a sales team person, which might even be different than a customer service agent, or it might be different than somebody in manufacturing who's working on a floor and what they want from a company culture. And that's why culture isn't just hard defined because in different industries, different values are really matter for the different types of people and the different kinds of work that's being done. And so, I could talk about collaboration all day long. I'm an extrovert. I believe in that. There are other people who are like, I want to put my headphones on. I want an environment where everybody's got headphones on and nobody's distracting anybody. And I can come in and work 10 hours straight and get all the work done I need and then just go home. And so,
Mm-hmm.
that's true too. And so that's why creating an environment that says we're creating a space for the people who value what we value, they'll succeed in this environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, right. It's a very good point. So we see how an outsider can understand a company's culture, but it's much difficult for an insider, a member of the company, to, after spending a lot of time in that company, to be fully aware of that company's culture. Because when we stay for a long time in a group, we may get accustomed with the
Mhm.
norms, with the ways of doing things, and maybe we lose perspective on how things could be different, how
Mhm.
people experience a workplace in different companies. So and maybe we forgot about what stay underneath our decision, our actions, and how can we stay full aware of the company's culture if we are a member of that company.
Well, it's so true. Once we're in a place for any length of time, we just become a part of it. And then and everybody is the culture carrier. So what I'm
Yes.
contributing in my comfort and familiarity is kind of this status quo experience. And I can think this is good or this is bad or this is great, but I'm contributing to it even unconsciously, if I'm not being intentional. So a couple things that let us do that. First, first and foremost, this is what I love about the young generation, Gen Z leaders and those in their early 20s, is they are so socially connected on the in social media that they have so much exposure. And that's one of the things that does it, and that's why Gen Z is more not demanding, but have higher expectations because they can see in real time other people quitting jobs, getting jobs, how they're being treated, what they're achieving. Shoot, they talk about money. They like it's out there for them to see. Whereas people, I'm Gen X, so right, I'm way past. I'm not spending hours on TikTok every day, and I'm not interested in that. But what happens for me is I go to a conference, I have relationships with colleagues and peers. And so exposure is always the
Mm-hmm.
number one way for us, depending on what age we're at and what level, how we get that exposure is, is talking to other people about their work environments, but sometimes feels a little weird, but is also like, hey, I want to make sure right? When it's done from a place of, I've been in this company 10 years, I want to make sure we are creating an environment that young people, generation leaders want to be a part of. The people who are coming into the workforce, are we attractive to them? So first exposure, and then second, thinking of how do we create an environment? Is this environment we have appealing to those that aren't in it of the caliber and quality of people we want? And so that's as easy as, having somebody that's out polling or that's inviting people from the outside in for their opinions, which is a really uncomfortable thing to do. But, if people individuals and organizations who want to keep growing and want to keep being successful, right? They're always mindful that without these little efforts of intentionality, we just drift to mediocrity, right? That's human
Mm-hmm.
nature, both personally and professionally. If we don't have little nudges and we're not reaching for a goal or we're not stretching ourselves beyond what we're doing and we're not self-creating challenges to overcome, we will just kind of settle. And so if you're inside of it, you ask yourself, have I talked to, seen, or been exposed to other companies and how they're creating a work environment? Are we attracting people that we want to be here? Is that the thing?
Mm-hmm.
And then third, are we intentionally creating difficulties so we keep growing? Or are we
Mm-hmm.
trying to live life without obstacles and try to make it as easy and comfortable around here as possible? Because if that's the case, you will definitely maintain a mediocrity and a culture that doesn't produce excellence.
Mm-hmm. All right. And I think that this exposure can happen also through new members. When you hire new people, they come with their ways of doing things, with their past patterns, and they can give feedback about the current culture. Maybe they come with solutions to the with other ways of doing things, and
Hmm.
maybe they question. Maybe we can encourage their questions and to think differently, to express their different opinions, because this is the challenge, to be open to other ways of doing things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Daniela, I that is the great challenge that companies face. And so, in my book, Act Like an Owner, I talk about how people start out with an owner's mindset. They show up in the job and they're like, I want to contribute and I want to create value and I want to offer something from
And they
myself.
are
And so
stopped.
the, they'll show up in a meeting and they'll be like, blah, 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 right? And everybody else is like,
We don't
oh,
want this. We do
yes,
different.
we're
We do
we
things
will
differently.
crush your soul. No, 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 no. And so that happens, and then they pull back. Then they
Hmm.
learn, oh, okay, you don't actually care about what I think. Oh,
Yes.
okay, you don't want to keep. And so in my language, companies take people with an owner's mindset and turn them into people who are just renting that space and who are just like, all right, I'm just using this and biding my time until I can find something that's good for me next. And so, you know, that is the challenge because there are a lot of restrictions. So, I don't want to blame a company that's like, it's really hard to change. And we've got a lot of systems and procedures and processes, and we've invested a lot of money for what we're doing right now. And we've got a lot of people trying to do it well. So just to change, we don't like that's not that appealing. I mean, because what a lot of times, young, excited people don't appreciate is the risk of it not working has real consequences, right? A
Mm-hmm.
person with ideas is like, I got ideas, but they don't have an investment or a cost or a risk of
Yes.
failure that has a legitimate, it's like, okay, well, if this doesn't work, then you're fired. Then you're like,
Mm.
okay, well, maybe let's not do that idea then, right? So because there's not a sense of, I want to do all this, but I don't own the consequences. And so a lot of times leaders and people who've been there a long time are like, it has real consequence. So let's be conscious about how we're making changes and how we're implementing. Let's listen to what people are saying and let's take all that. But it's usually a little bit slower. Even in nimble organizations that can make change fast, they still want to do it with wisdom. They still want to do it with the experience that those that have been there. So there's this friction of fresh new ideas and perspectives with experience and the past and built-in current systems that are like, how does this
Yes.
evolve and not just wholesale one or the other? And it's hard. Like it just is. That's why it's work. And that's why people that bring that spirit, you want to create an environment where we say, I hear you. I appreciate that. We want you to keep contributing
Yes.
and bringing ideas. Just know that at the pace we operate and the restrictions and resources we have, here's how it's probably going to work out. It's mostly going to be no. Sometimes it's going to be, ooh, that's interesting. Let's play with
Mm-hmm.
that. Other times it's going to be, let's just come back and revisit that in 6 months and
Mm-hmm.
see where we're at with it then.
I think that yes, it's very important to listen to their ideas, and if they are not applicable, or if you consider that they are not good, to explain why they are not good, because in this way they are not, they don't feel that their ideas are rejected. They were listened, analyzed, and they were given an answer. And I think that, yes, this is a very important thing. But also, sometimes can be simple things that can be implemented immediately
Yes.
without huge analysis or huge discussions. And I
Mhm.
think that being open to other ways of doing things can improve the internal actions, decisions, and procedures. And sometimes an employee brings knowledge, new knowledge
Absolutely.
to a company. And if you don't listen, you lose that knowledge and you
Right.
operate at a lower level than you actually can, because you pay for that person's salary. So,
Hmm.
and you don't use
What they
that
have to offer.
knowledge.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things, Danielle, like even in the interview, like you were talking about from a candidate's perspective, if they are coming with experience. So if this isn't a young leader, it's an experienced leader coming in, one of the simplest questions is, tell me in the last 3 months what changes you've made, what ideas you've implemented, what new things you're experimenting with, what are you attempting, or what are some little things you've pivoted on or made adjustments in that have had, marginal made a marginal difference, but collectively those things add up. And so if they're like, man, I don't know if we've changed anything in the last 3 months. Okay, well then before going in, they're not really a place that's like listening to, let's keep little experiments happening. Let's find ways to test out ideas. Let's be willing to shift on things
Mhm.
that aren't high risk. And let's just see because, opinions are they're not facts, they're not data, they're just opinions. And
Yes.
everybody's got different ones and maybe one is better, one has a better creates a better result
Hmm.
internally or creates a better result with our clients or our service line or the products we're creating or our customer service. So are they will do they even have a willingness to do that? So you can pressure test that a little bit before joining the team so you're not blindsided by, oh gosh, these guys aren't open to anything.
Right. So, okay. So let's go further. And I want to ask you, I think this is an important question for everyone who wants to introduce new values in their companies. So,
Mm.
do you think that there are certain steps that top management or the person involved in that implementation should go through to so that value is understood and shared by the members of the company?
Daniela, this is the place I love to play the most. This is my favorite thing. So absolutely. So a couple different things. In my experience in working with companies the last 15, 20 years, the idea of how do we get values that matter across the company instead of they're just words on a wall or they're words we say or we even talk about, but people aren't bought into them. And I'm all about how do we get people to buy in? How do we create this ownership culture where people are like, I love working here. And the first thing is the process. The process to achieve these values is the most important thing about value discovery at all. And when working with companies, you don't create values. You don't say, "Here's what we value." It's already there. They already exist. So
Yes.
it's a value discovery process. And if in that discovery process you say, we say we value our people, but really what we value is speed to market, and we'll use up people all the time. It's like, that's an accidental. We don't want that. It's
Mhm.
true of us now, but we don't want that to be true of us. We do want to value our people. So, like you're saying, how do we make that shift where we go, oh, we've got these values that are true, but some of them we wish weren't true, and we'd like to be really more intentional about that. So, creating the process, and honestly, that's what I do. I work with companies in going in and saying, how do we, whether it's values discovery, first off, there are some companies and organizations that haven't been really intentional and said, we want to know what they are. There are other companies I work with that we do these values refresh. We say we've had these values for a decade or 2 decades, and we're not sure they're true anymore. There's new language. We have different employees now. We have different leadership from when these were created. Let's refresh the values. Let's come back and take a look at them and say, do these still apply? And so that process is you have to involve people at all levels of the organization in the different departments. And it doesn't have to be an extensive process. I've done it in a few months because you already have some buy-in to these were our values. Now we're making changes. Definitely it requires leadership to say, we want this initiative to happen because people at the ground level can't go, we're going to refresh our values. And if leadership says, nah, we're not going to do that, then it's not going to take. So it takes leadership saying, we want to be mindful of this environment we've created. And in doing so, we want to invite voices from across our organization to play a part in it. It can happen in a way that is meaningful, that you get work, because there's a lot of word discovery of like, let's really discover what we value, put language to that, and let's define the culture we want. So you do value discovery, discover values, define
Mhm.
culture, and then describe behaviors. In this culture, this is what it looks like, how people act, how people don't act, how people respond in situations, how people don't respond. And so you literally put language to that. And so, like the thing you're talking about is very common because over the course of time, words change, beliefs change, values evolve, and the people who are working, they interpret those differently. And so
Mhm.
I recommend at least once a decade, right? It's not once a decade. If you've been intentional about these are our values, this is all our culture, this is who we are, come back and go, does this still fit? Does this still apply? Is this language still accurate? Are these behaviors? How has our business changed? How has society changed? And how can then we align with what's relevant now so we keep the best people engaged in the highest capacity? And so it's totally possible, but it is the process that makes all of it legitimate so that then the people that are involved, they become the ambassadors. They
Mhm.
become the ones who say, this is why we value, this is what it looks like, and this is how we came to it. I was a part of it. I got to contribute to these words, these ideas, and the way they're played out. And so that's what makes it legitimate. That's what makes it real, is that those who decide what the values are people at every level and every part of the organization, because then they become the strongest ambassadors for letting it infiltrate amongst everyone else.
Mhm. And I think it helps feedback when employees comply or respect that value or when they don't. So you can reinforce that value by discussing different behaviors that fall out of that value.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what the work I do, we actually write it down. We literally write down, here's like 10 or 15 ways this value shows up at work. Here
Mhm.
are 10 or 15 ways these behaviors violate what we say is really important to us. Like we
Mhm.
just put it in writing. So it's like, if respecting people, it's like yelling in a meeting violates this value. We don't do that. We
And
don't raise our voices. We don't let our emotions because we value respect for our people. Something like
and
that.
and do you communicate these changes in values through those ambassadors? Those ambassadors could be team leaders or direct managers, or could be also other ways of communicating these values.
I like a multi-tiered approach. So I have been
Mm-hmm.
a part of organizations where we did it and everybody knew it was being done, and this small group of people were coming in, we're having meetings once a month or twice a month to get it done and work it all out. So people knew it was happening. So we did a rollout, company-wide rollout. We're going to take an hour. We're going to share with you everything we got. Here are our values refreshed. Here are the words. Here's what they mean. You do a company-wide thing. Second, you create a few graphics. They don't have to be these posters everywhere, but they're just like, wow, we did these little cards put on everyone's workstation, desks. We put them up
Mm-hmm.
around where it's like these, we had three values. And I'm a big fan of 3 to 4 values. Like you don't want 8 values. You want
Yes.
like 3 or 4 that people are like,
Mm-hmm.
I know what they are. I understand what they mean, and I can talk about them in a normal language kind of way, not corporate speak. So we would put graphic, and then we put icons and graphics with what each one meant. And so we'd put those up around in the different locations, the different workstations. So we'd do that and then create posters that actually have like, here are the behaviors. So we'd do like, here's what it looks like. So there's
Yes.
these variations of this. And then in the meetings, then the leaders, like you're talking about the team leaders, and I'm a fan of not just like management, but people at all levels, frontline
Mm-hmm.
employees are a part of it. And so, but then when the team leaders meet, they just go over really quickly, hey, these are really important. Let's see how they show up here in our meetings, right? How we communicate. We're going to do this. And when I do it with top leadership, they take a window where they talk about, where I'll ask them to share every week in their executive meeting, excuse me, an area that they're struggling to live up to those values. So it's not just, oh, we
Mm-hmm.
got these words and we all do it. Like it's just,
Mm-hmm.
we're awesome at this. It's like, you know what, these matter and this is difficult and we're really being conscious of it. And here's where I find I have some struggle with that. And so I always assign leadership for the next couple months to talk about it in a way that says, I'm not yet succeeding at this.
Mm-hmm.
We're implementing it. We're becoming it. So it creates this environment where other people can go, I'm not really sure if this is what this means or if what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know if I'm really doing this right. If these values is what, and so it creates this open space for
Mm-hmm.
conversation. So that multi-tiered strategy is then what integrates it in, and then you start using it in your hiring process as well.
Yes, I think that this point of discussing difficulties is very, very important and help them to really implement those values.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Greg. It's been a pleasure to hear your answers and to listen to your perspectives. I know that you will release or you released already a book. Can you
Hmm.
tell us a little bit
Sure.
about this book?
I've referenced it. I'm so excited. It's up here behind me. It's called Act Like an Owner. You can find out about it at actlikeanownerbook.com, or you can go to my website, greghawks.com, GREGHAWKS.com. And it really just is talking about creating an environment where people want to buy in. And I talk about this ownership mindset as people who bring their heart, head, and hands. People who don't just show up with the skills, but they care and they think about and they use their imagination. And they're the most fulfilled, the most productive, the most enjoyable. Like it's a win, 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 win for the individual and the organization when they do that. And so this book, though, also talks about that it has to go both ways. A company doesn't just get people who show up that way. They've got to create a space for them, which is a risk because it means the people have a little bit of agency, autonomy, are able to take some chances, might have some failures, but have kind of the space to do that. And so I'm very excited about it. And I think it's really useful. My goal is that every company would buy it and say, every person that gets hired here, we stick one of these books in their hand and say, if you'll think this way, you'll act this way, you'll succeed and you'll love it, and we'll succeed and we'll love you.
Great. I will put the link in the
Okay.
description of this episode. And
Thank you.
tell us also how, in which way people who are interested in getting in touch with you can do this.
Yes, well, I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my primary social media network. And then my website, greghawks.com, is where most people communicate with me, send me messages through, and that sort of thing. And that's really it. Those are the two simple ways, LinkedIn and the website, which you can put links to both of those
Yes.
as well if you're doing that. And I really appreciate it. So I love connecting with people. I love building a global network. And I really think the work we do in creating work environments where people spend so much time of their life, it really matters that
Yes.
it's a space and a place that they enjoy and they get to contribute and it's meaningful and they find fulfillment in it. So I think the work is worthy of it.
Yes, for sure. And I think that you brought a little bit clarity to this concept because people see company culture very differently. And what you shared, I think, brought more clarity. And your book could also bring other guidance to them. Thank you
I
very
hope
much.
so. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you found value in this podcast, subscribe to stay updated. I'm grateful for your support and hope to continue providing content that helps you grow. See you in the next episode.